great players. They have a great organization. And you tell them one thing.
What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Raider Alex back with yet another video for you guys. Anybody that is new to the channel, you guys love Raiders related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, let's jump right into it. With the Raiders very likely in play to draft a quarterback in this year's 2023 NFL draft, there is for sure a possibility that our general manager Dave Ziegkler will potentially consider trading up in this year's NFL draft to select one of the premier quarterbacks in this year's rookie class. Now, I haven't scouted all the quarterbacks in this year's draft, but from the quarterbacks I have looked at thus far, it does kind of feel like the 2023 quarterback class is a little bit top heavy. It really feels like Ohio State CJ Stroud and Alabama's Bryce Young are really a step ahead of all these other prospects. Now, don't get me wrong though, you still got guys with a lot of talent and huge upside, but most of these quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, even a Hendon Hooker, look, most of these guys will likely take much longer to develop compared to CJ Stroud and Bryce Young at this moment. Now, the unfortunate thing for the Raiders is that sitting at pick number 7, if you really want one of these quarterbacks, you very likely are going to be forced to use draft capital and trade up in this year's draft. But at the same time, what would we be looking at in terms of an asking price if the Raiders wanted to move up? Well, PFF recently posted their projection of what they think it would take for teams like the Texans, the Colts, and the Raiders, all teams that could be in play for a quarterback in this year's draft, to trade up to the number 1 overall pick with the Chicago Bears. So if the Raiders wanted to move up that far, PFF is projecting that it would require the Las Vegas Raiders this year's number 7th overall pick, our first rounder this year, second and third rounder this year, and next year's 2024 first and second rounder as well. So in total, you'd be giving up 5 draft picks in the next 2 years, and 4 of those draft picks would be considered premium draft capital, 2 first rounders and 2 second rounders. So look, that price is definitely a lot to give up if you want to move up to the number 1 overall pick. Our Raiders front office with our assistant general manager Champ Kelly does have direct ties with the Chicago Bears front office, so it may be something that they consider, but ultimately I don't think the Raiders should try and move up that far in this year's draft, because they will very likely take about that much draft capital to move up. Really, I think the Raiders in this year's draft, they really need to let the draft board fall as it may, at least until you get to the 3rd or the 5th overall pick, because very likely one of those 2 quarterbacks will be gone by pick number 3. I'm guessing Bryce Young will very likely get selected by the Houston Texans at pick number 2, and the Colts select at number 4, and they will be very likely in the play for a quarterback. But some reports have also indicated that they could potentially select Will Levis at number 4. And if that happened, then that would be very good news for the Raiders, as very likely at that point CJ Stroud would be available at pick number 5. And if that happens, that's definitely where, if the Raiders are going to move up, that's the most ideal scenario to do so. Trade up with Seattle. Moving up 2 spots from number 7 to number 5 is a huge difference compared to moving up to the number 1 overall pick with the Chicago Bears. And you may be able to trade up 2 spots and only have to give up, say, your 7th overall pick this year, maybe a 2nd and 3rd rounder this year or next year. And really, that'd be a much more attainable scenario for the Raiders. You don't have to give up the farm. You don't necessarily have to jeopardize the future in terms of draft capital, and you can still potentially get your guy in this draft. Now, should the Raiders even consider trading up in this year's draft? Look, it's tough, because look, if there is a chance to get a potential generational quarterback, then you definitely have to try and do it. In today's current NFL, it's really hard to win unless you either have an elite quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes, you got a quarterback on a rookie deal like a Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, etc., or you just have an overall stacked roster, and even then it may not be enough. For example, look at the San Francisco 49ers. Their roster is absolutely loaded with talent, but they were unable to make it to the Super Bowl this season. And look, I understand their quarterbacks did get hurt throughout the season, but even with a healthy Brock Purdy or a Jimmy G, I'm not convinced that they would beat the Eagles or the Chiefs this season. And I definitely understand a lot of viewers will watch this and think, but the defense needs to be addressed and we need to invest on that side of the football. And look, I totally agree with you, but what you got to understand too is that if the Raiders can hit on a quarterback in the draft, then they will be put in an absolute prime position to go all in on defense for the next 4 years by having our rookie quarterback on that rookie deal for the next 4 seasons. At that point, our offense already has a lot of talent with our skill positions. And if we're able to hit on a young mobile quarterback, then that side of the football will almost be set for years to come. The Raiders can then go heavy on defense throughout the draft in the later rounds. Remember, Max Crosby was selected in the 4th round. Our general manager Dave Ziegkler was able to draft J.C. Jackson as an undrafted free agent back in New England. So we're going to have to trust his ability to draft, to hit on these later round picks. And by having a quarterback on that rookie deal, that allows you so much opportunity to invest a lot of money on defense throughout these next years in free agency. Now, regardless though, what the Raiders need to avoid going into this year's draft is they cannot go into the draft without a backup plan at quarterback and without being absolutely desperate for a quarterback, which is really where we will lose all leverage and potentially trading up, and it may require us to overpay if we want to do so. Because if the Raiders cannot get a deal done for Aaron Rodgers, then they need to re-sign Jarrett Stidham for sure. And they also need to sign a quarterback in free agency, sign a bridge quarterback to a short-term deal, whether that be a Jimmy G, a Jacoby Brissett, whoever it may be, but you need to bring in a guy that can start for you next year. If you can bring in a veteran bridge quarterback, then now you're not obligated to go draft a quarterback in the 1st round. And even if you do get lucky and you get your guy early in the 1st round, then you don't have to be forced to throw the young rookie out there, and you can allow him some time to adjust in the NFL unless he absolutely just shows out and wins the job in training camp and in the preseason. It'll be interesting to see what the Raiders do in free agency at the quarterback position, because I think that will directly affect what we may do going into the draft. You know, it's an interesting topic because at the same time, you know, if you give up draft capital to move up to get your guy in the draft, then you could be set at the quarterback position, the most important position in all of football, for years to come. Or vice versa, if you aren't able to hit, then it's tough because now you gave a draft capital and now you could be set back a year or 2. So I think the Raiders should definitely consider moving up, but definitely do not move up to the number 1 overall spot. It's going to cost way too much. And even though I love a guy like CJ Stroud and even Bryce Young, I don't know if it's really worth to give up that much draft capital for a young guy. At the end of the day, no quarterback is a sure thing in the National Football League. But Raider Nation, let me know from you guys. What do you guys think? Do you think the Raiders should consider moving up in this year's draft to get a premier quarterback? Let me know down below. But with that being said, Raider Nation, that's all I have for you guys in today's video. Anybody that is new to the channel, you guys love Raiders related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. With that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one.